Alright, my name's ShawNshawN, and I do art on ShawNshawN.co and specials on eBay. Today we're going to review Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel is a story of this girl in training, cadet, she's named Varys, and she's training on the Cree homeworld in a force called the Intergalactic Space Force. So she gets out into her first mission, and her first mission is to kind of rescue one of their compadres being held captive by these terrorist shapeshifters. And these shapeshifters can literally touch you and then take any form they want to down to the DNA level. So they're really hard to find. They can obviously sneak up on you if they tap one of your friends, right? So because of this, when they try to land, and they confuse quite a bit of them and are able to sneak by and capture Varys. And so it's their first mission's a failure, right? They're taken into the ship, and then there's a kind of mind device and trying to either implant memories or take out memories. You're not sure what they're kind of doing. I don't think Varys knows what's going on. She has these reoccurring flashbacks to this, this pilot and this guy pointing a gun at her, and that looks like possibly her trainer. So she's kind of confused, like where these memories come from. And these aliens are trying to do something with her memories. She finally breaks free and escapes, and the whole ship blows up, and she escapes in these escape pods, and there's like 6 people after her, these shapeshifters, right? And they land on planet C-53, which is Earth. So it's kind of funny because they land in Earth, I want to say the mid-90s, maybe early millennial, but it's definitely like 90s, end of this millennial, because she lands in a blockbuster, so that's pretty funny. And then these shapeshifters are after her the whole time, and then she calls in her boss, and they're on their way to kind of rescue her. And then you find out, so her boss, unravel, that's the guy that's training her, calls up Ronan. We all know Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy. Ronan hunted down in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, the Guardians, right? And they faced off to him and won. And then he came back in, I think, part 2, and he was pretty interesting character. Oh, and then his boss came back, right, in Avengers Infinity War, and you're like, holy crap, dude, it's insane. So you see the early version of Ronan. It wasn't played quite well. He's a little bit sheepish at this point. He's kind of powerful, but not all powerful. I thought they did a way better version in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's a different actor, and maybe they soft pedaled it, I don't know, but it just wasn't a super convincing Ronan, considering how badass he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. But he's like this tiny role, so whatever, right? I think they used a different actor. I'm not sure they played the Ronan. Maybe they did, but maybe they just soft pedaled. I don't know. He just wasn't in character. But that could have been done a lot better, I think. It was like he has 2 seconds on the film, so probably he's paid like 20 grand or whatever. But still, it's just character didn't come off as believable as it once was. So he calls up Ronan, and then she's like, oh my, and then you're like, yeah, this is the Cree we knew, like the badass guys, right? And then she starts to uncover the plot, like maybe something else happened to her on Earth, and then she finds files of her on Earth, and she's like, whoa, I'm actually from Earth. So that's where the story's going, right? I'm not gonna give out the whole plot, but that's where it's leading. So it has this really nice, mystery to it, which kind of unravels over the course of the film. So it's quite nice, a little bit complex. It's always tricky when you add mystery to a storyline. Sometimes they do go off the deep end on like dead-end plot lines, and sometimes they do it just right. So I always find when movies try to do these mysteries, especially maybe an action film like this, it's kind of hard to kind of balance that out, and they get maybe a little bit too much on the deep end of mysteries. There's a couple films where they've done this, and it's really irritating when they just do a little bit too much. So it's really hard to find that balance, I think, as a director. Overall, I think they did a pretty good job. I might have laid it out a little bit differently in the editing, but I think people liked it. So one of the curious thing is, why is Marvel such a success in the DC universe? It's a basket case, basically. So basically what happened was, Marvel's been managed until recently with Stan Lee, as executive producer. So he's putting too much in the film. They're probably the directors, writing most of the story and whatever, and they have all this material that Stan Lee wrote from 1960s till the 2000s, and Stan Lee's really the writer behind it. He's not the drawer, but he's the writer. Kirby was really the illustrator for most of the Marvel. And so since Stan Lee was the writer, you can translate that straight to film, right? With all these great plot lines. And with the DC universe, I don't think they're using the writers, and maybe they are, but it just seems like they're all over the place. Like they do like 6 million Batmans, and you're like, I love Batman. That's my biggest comic book fan, so I'm not unhappy they've done Batman, but some of the Batmans they chose were terrible, like Ben Affleck in the recent. That's just like, after Christian Bale, it's like, dude, there's no other Batman than Christian Bale. He's the best Batman. You do more, Batman's gonna suck, right? But of course, you're gonna always do Batman. Batman's always a great character. And they've done a little bit of Superman and Suicide Squad, so they're kind of trying to pull it together, and they're doing the Super League or whatever. But it's just like they didn't pull the plot lines together. They should have done individual movies and then come together the same like they did with Avengers. They did it correctly, where you do all the spin-offs first, pull them together and then do the movies, and it really makes sense because you know all those characters just a little bit, and then you can sew little tiny pieces of them, but it all makes sense because you have fully developed films behind each character, right? So they probably could have done a little bit more with some of the other female stars in the Avengers, which they didn't do, which is probably a little disappointing. But again, comic books have traditionally been, I think, more geared towards little boys versus girls. Girls is more like Little Pony and Barbie, and that's very stereotypical, and there are girls that get into comic books, but it's generally primarily boys traditionally, and that's, you know, the directors and the producers are kind of taking a safe bet by leading mostly with the male heroes and not developing as much the female one, except for Wonder Woman. You have to do Wonder Woman. She's the biggest lead for that particular one. Well, that was in the DC universe, but anyway, so they had to develop that, so that was really great. They did a really great job with Wonder Woman, and that kind of solidifies the trust of the studios, like, hey, maybe women can direct well other women. You're like, duh, they're women. How stupid are the studios, dude? Like, we need a man director to direct the women. And then you have all these stereotypical roles. Halloween. I love Halloween, but it's like Jamie Lee Curtis like, all the time screaming and running away, and you're like, dude, is there anyone smart in this film? But yeah, you have these really stereotypical view of women as victims and screamers, and they break down mentally, and all these stereotypes that come from kind of the 50s, 60s mentality, which a lot of these directors and producers and all the top execs at these movies, they're old guys, right? So that's what they fall for. And you know, for the most part, those stereotypes kind of work in films and people don't protest against them, so they still go and see it, which probably, since it's a male dominated audience a lot of times for these type of films, that they're not really concerned if the women think, oh, these roles are ridiculous. And the actresses want to act, right? So they have all the power, so it kind of makes sense that they did it that way traditionally. However, you know, Wonder Woman was kind of a breakout role. Same with Captain Marvel here. We're having a breakout female role. And I think that's really important to see if you can really push the level and make that work. I will say Wonder Woman was a better film, I would say, than this one. I think it was just so much build up to Wonder Woman because you had the 1970s Linda Carter's TV series with Wonder Woman, and you have all that build up, and then they didn't have Linda Carter in there. You're like, dude, it's Linda Carter. You got to have her in Wonder Woman. But whatever, they screwed that up. You know, it's like the guys running DC are freaking retards, you know. But it's because they're split between Sony and Warner, so they don't really have a clear lead there who owns what. It's just horrible, right? So at least Marvel, it's completely owned by Disney, so they got a nice succinct methodology there. So I think Captain Marvel, they did a pretty good job. Wonder Woman is slightly better if you want to compare like a woman lead. Really strong, knock it out of the box, kind of talks a little bit of romance, same time innocence, and that has a really nice fun dynamic through the film. This one, it's kind of like she's a trainee, and then she figures out it's a mystery, and she finds out, you know, who the Cree really are in a sense. I think they could have made, you know, they show Ronan, but they don't show some of the violence that Ronan is. You know, if they had kind of uncovered that a little bit more. Obviously, we know from other films like Guardians of the Galaxy, most people have seen Guardians. I've seen this film, I've probably seen Guardians, right? But if this is a standalone for you really don't know how evil Ronan is. So you really need to kind of add a little bit of nuggets in there, maybe blow up a planet or shoot up some other races on the side plot. And that would get better connected that, oh man, she's working for the wrong guys, right? So I think they could have developed that a little more. I mean, you know, going to the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Roman's the bad guy, but if you don't know, then it doesn't ring as true. So I think they could have developed that a little bit, like maybe 5 minutes of film here and there, and trim some other stuff and add 5 minutes on Ronan. Otherwise, you know, it's pretty good. You know, overall, I was pretty happy with the film. It kind of flows how I wanted. The mystery there's a little bit too much dead ends, which how mysteries work. So I would have kind of maybe snipped a little of those, add a little bit of Ronan, but otherwise pretty solid Marvel movie. Hope you guys like it. You can like me down below. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.